I had said before that the DNA of Nigeria is in agriculture. Yeah. That is why you see even our national flag has the green, white, green, the green representing agriculture. That's where we came from, and that has sustained this country, in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and even the 70s and so on. Eventually, the story of how things turned out, and then we relied on oil and so on. But as it is where we are now, everybody has agreed that agriculture is what will sustain this country going forward. Even if we discover gold and discover more, but agriculture is one thing that is going to sustain people, because every population, every child that is born today has to eat. Yeah. So if we all agree this is what we need to do, how come it's so challenging to revamp the agricultural sector? Maybe we've not found the formula, or what are you seeing?
Okay, before I address that, I would like to also acknowledge that Mr. Wiley, contributing today, is also a former chairman of the Agric Group at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce and Industry?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's
before
good.
Me.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. So we've not been able to harness agriculture because we've been focusing a lot on projects and programs and not people. And we've had the Ministry of Agriculture and various administrations, spanning like 30 years, focusing on crops, items, as against systems. The sole business of the Ministry of Agriculture is to create an enabling environment for the private sector to take advantage of the opportunities. And so they make profit and create impact. The Ministry of Agriculture's culture is supposed to focus on the 11 parastatals under them, the quarantine, the research institute. Once those parastatals operate effectively and efficiently, every other thing will work. But when the ministry is focusing on project, let's grow cassava, let's grow rice, that's all they focus on. They now neglect pineapple, they neglect oil palm, forgetting that bleached oil palm is most of the vegetable oil we consume. All the noodles we take contains palm oil. All the soaps we take, toothpaste, everything contains palm oil. So they're supposed to ensure that the institutions under them are functional and the private sector, take effect. So, recently they announced some 200 billion that are going into agriculture. That is very small when you consider how much the private sector will spend. So instead of the ministry focusing on the private sector, they narrowly focus on the peanuts that is coming into the sector. So we may not be food secure if that still continues.
Wally, I wonder what you see. You have been on ground, and I imagine you going to the farm to check your, what you're producing on daily basis, seeing this thing and juxtaposing them against the cost of transportation, the cost of this, the cost of that, diesel and so on. Now, how is the Forex on one hand, the fuel on the other hand, how is it affecting, how is it impacting your activity? I'm using you now as a focal point, and how are you navigating this? Because I know there are so many other farmers that all of you engage and interact on how to navigate through these things.
It's a very tough decision to have made, and it's affect me, it affects everybody also, not even the farmers. We all see what is going on with the subsidy now. And I keep on saying it, that until our government or our leaders are able to get away from paper's policy into people's rented policy, we keep on mixing it. Paper policy means somersault policy. Because the policy is there, we have the same policy like any other country, any advanced countries. But the problem we're having is implementations, which is what I mean by people's rented policy. Yes, it affects everybody, especially transportation is a key. It's one of the key sectors that need to be looked into, especially people in the rural areas. How do we transport our goods from the rural areas to the urban area? Transporting a trailer loads of maize now from the north down to the south here, you're talking almost about 450,000 naira. So when you put that on top of what you have already bought in a very high price, definitely it's going to shoot up the prices when you get to the market. And you have to remember that this world is about competitive. We compete with animals taking the same grains, the same thing with human beings, not to talk of the manufacturing companies. So by the time, I remember one time when the former president, when he sent some of the ministers to go into the market to see why the price of goods is so skyrocketed. We just sit there and say, is it the minister that's supposed to go there or the stakeholders in this sector? Call them. What are we doing that the production is very low? What are we doing that the price of these goods are very high? And I bet you the same minister will send some of his PA. He will not even send his wife to go to the market. So we are mixing so many things together until we can get people's oriented policy. We keep on having the same problem.
All right, Kabir, you were joining us from Abuja. Let me take you on the issue of the Ministry of Agriculture. You have worked with, you've engaged government agencies at different times and so on. And as it is, of course, everyone is still waiting for who the Minister of Agriculture is going to be. They have been screened, waiting for the president to, allocate those and then make the announcement. But from your perspective, what kind of Minister of Agriculture are you expecting?
Thank you. Good morning. For us, if you look at it, we need an agricultural minister that understands agricultural sector and took agriculture as a business, not as being government just to dig out papers, seminars, and to know. We need an agricultural minister that every day is in one farm or the other. And we need an agricultural minister that knows what to do in each state. And I'll give you an example. It has become imperative that Nigerians must go back to that agriculture. Now, agriculture is like our oil, if we know what we are doing. And for us to get there, we are already there. How to now expand and make it work is what Mr. President should. So in looking for who will be the minister, it must be somebody that will make it work. We must now look at, okay, what are the cash crops that we can export? What are the stable foods that we can grow within the country that will now be food sufficient? And not just about going about white paper or any, no. We have gone beyond that. And even as a president, you must support the minister to also be able to now establish farms, houses, every state. Each state must be asked to bring the crop that they can take comparative advantage on. And that state, and I'll give you an example. For us to make our agricultural sector work, we must see a minister who believes that in conjunction with water resources, they must resuscitate our dams that are closed, especially when you are looking at Lake Chad. We must bring Lake Chad back to life. We must see a minister who believes that we must bring our forest back into life, where we can also be growing our foods. We must see a minister that will look at opera forest around Shaki in Oyo State, where you can grow cotton, where Benin Republic are even coming into Nigerian territory to grow cotton and sell it in their own country. We must look at a minister that believes that issue of food must be sufficient in Nigeria. That is what we need now. Nigerians must have food sufficiency that we can also export and then take comparative advantage of what we have. We must look at ministers that will look at the coastal area and say enough is enough for Indians and other nationals that go to high sea, take our fish, take our shrimps, take all our marine resources, and then they will now put it into processing within our territorial water, bring it to Nigeria as we are import, sell it as exorbitant price. We must say a minister now that will go to Ekpe and say, look, Ekpe people, come on the young youth in Lagos State, let's go to high sea, give them trawlers, let them go to high sea, then so that we can harness the resources within our coastal areas. These are the type of minister we need.